Great. So London, Milton Keynes, Brisbane, brilliant. Great to have people from all over the world joining us today. So let's crack on. So yeah, welcome to this webinar. It's around Salesforce release readiness for enterprises, and we're going to be going through some expert strategies from our two panelists today for success at speed and scale. So today, our panel consists of Adam Best, who's a Program Architect Director from Salesforce Australia, and also Ivan Harris, Chief Product and Technology Officer from Provar. Before we get into everything today, just a bit of logistics. So the chat is open, so please feel free to share where you're from, communicate with each other there. But for questions, please put them in the Q&A that you can find at the bottom of the screen. Also, this session is being recorded, and everyone who registered for the webinar will get a link to that recording, and it will also be on our YouTube channel in the next couple of days as well. So with that being said, I'm going to stop sharing those slides, and I will quickly hand over for a quick intro from our panelists. So Adam, if we start with you, can you just give a very quick introduction to yourself, please?
Yeah, thanks, Nick, and pleasure to be here, and thanks everyone for joining us today. My name is Adam Best. I'm a Program Architect Director here at Salesforce Professional Services. My job is simply to make our most ambitious customers successful in their digital transformation. I've had 20 years experience in technology and 13 or 14 years, give or take, experience specifically in the Salesforce ecosystem. And I've been a tester, a developer, an architect, sometime in that time. So very happy to be here.
Thanks, Adam. And Ivan, a quick intro.
Thanks, Nick, and thanks, Adam, for joining us today. Really appreciate it. I'm Ivan Harris. I'm the Chief Product and Technology Officer at Provar. Spent the first part of my career working in the aerospace and defense industry, writing safety-critical embedded software. Then I transitioned to spending 20 years in C-level roles, CPO, CTO, in startups and scale-ups, and the last 12 years in the Salesforce ecosystem, including 2 years working for Salesforce before I joined Provar.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot. So we'll kick off today with our first question for you guys. So, as an intro, what is a Salesforce release, and what's the impact that they can have on an enterprise? So Adam, if you want to kick us off.
Salesforce releases, we call them seasonal releases, are our major releases. So they're winter, spring, and summer. And so 6 to 8 weeks before a release is deployed to production, Salesforce will deploy that release into selected sandboxes. And we call that a preview period. So in this preview period, Salesforce customers and partners generally are reading the release notes, learning about all the changes of the new features and updates for those features, and really taking them for a test drive. Nick, there are hundreds and hundreds of feature updates and new features in every single release.
Yeah, and I'd add to that Salesforce pioneered the B2B SaaS business practically. So largely all customers are on the same major release most of the time. But this does present some challenges to large enterprises with complex multi-org implementations. Because one of the things that Salesforce don't guarantee, and they call this out in their documentation, is that the user interface won't change from release to release. So not only can the layout change, but the technology used to render the UI can change as well as we transition from Visualforce to Aura to Lightning Web Components, for example. So the UI the technology and the layout of the pages does change significantly between those major releases and even in between. So what ends up happening is that if you're using a coded framework like Selenium or a less sophisticated low-code, no-code tool, you spend a significant part of that preview period rewriting your tests and getting them working again. What we do at Provar, and this will be the only technology plug I'll do about Provar in the whole session, but it's quite important, is that we leverage the Salesforce metadata. So we can understand the layout of the standard pages at Salesforce. We can use that for auto navigation, for helping with the authoring, and also for API testing. So we get access to the preview before customers do, and we fix all of that before our customers get it. So you spend less time in that rework cycle. But zooming back out again, the great opportunity about 3 releases a year, you don't have to think about deploying stuff into your own infrastructure and your own desktops, etc. You just get the latest goodness from Salesforce. But from an automation testing standpoint, it does present some challenges.
Right. And what are some of the key things to consider for customers when they're releasing their own capabilities on Salesforce? Maybe, Adam, maybe you could take that one to start with.
Yeah, I think planning for the 3 seasonal releases is really important, even for your own releases, right? So understand and plan for those seasonal releases. Put them on like a BAU calendar in addition to your own releases, just to make sure that they're, not coinciding and close together. Reading through the release notes, creating preview sandboxes to clone from. If you plan out your releases and the Salesforce releases together, then it just makes sure that you're not going to have any, unnecessarily hitches and conflicts with planning. So while most components have versioning, with the Salesforce releases, we still recommend that customer performs this regression testing in a sandbox with this preview in it, to ensure their business processes are continuing to work as designed. So also the planning of that testing in these environments is important as well. If you're in a larger organization, you can imagine your higher environments are really busy with testing. Well, this is just another testing cycle that your testing team should go through for those Salesforce releases as well. Ivan, your thoughts?
Yeah, so large enterprises, they have to deal with complexity. So they may have multiple orgs, multiple Salesforce products, integrations with non-Salesforce products as well, and systems, multiple business units, multiple business owners. Consider a bank, for example. You may have a corporate investment banking division. You can have a wholesale banking division, a retail banking division. Each of those has got a different propensity to risk and a different cadence for their release cycles. So one of the things to really consider at the enterprise level is establishing a center of excellence, governance, and best practices, including measuring your quality at every stage of the journey. So establishing that gives you a solid framework to make sure you understand how you're gating through your changes to production, and how you're doing regression testing, and what the quality measure is at every stage of that journey. So you feel confident at go live that you've passed all of the tick boxes that each of the business owners needs to feel confident about the release upgrade. And if you need help with best practices, establishing centers of excellence, Salesforce provide those services to help you, but also their partners, and those GSIs, global systems integrators, are also partners of ours. So we can help with the quality side of things via our partnerships with Salesforce and the GSIs.
Right. And when we look at the enterprise, how can they ensure successful rollouts of new Salesforce releases? Ivan, maybe we'll stick with you for this one, leading on from what you were just talking about.
Yeah, as a follow-on from that is enterprise-grade test automation and regression testing, making sure that nothing's broken. So your BAU is functioning as expected. Focus on your key customer journeys, and this isn't just within Salesforce, but across Salesforce systems and third-party systems that you're integrated with, so that you know that the end-to-end customer journey or business process itself is functioning as expected. I'd recommend prioritizing security, of course. Run your security-related tests. And this is where persona-based testing becomes really important. So you're making sure that people have the right access to the right data to fulfill their role. And establish KPIs. I talked about measuring in the answer to the previous question. Establishing your KPIs allows you to go on a maturity journey, benchmark where you are today, establish what you need to do to get to the next level of maturity, and then put in place the initiatives that get you from one level of maturity to the next as you go from release to release. Adam, you got anything to add?
Yeah. Look, I totally agree, Ivan. If you we're talking about enterprise, then small tasks with enterprise become big tasks. So I think enterprise DevOps, as Ivan was just alluding to, is key to enabling both speed and scale with your end-to-end regression testing. I often talk about the ability to load test users into Sandbox to increase that quality and enables both manual and automated testing. Having the ability to shift left and run your end-to-end regression testing on non-integrated environments is also a great maturity to have. And if you have, we'll say, system platform to platform integrations, that may require you to get an additional tool like an API simulation tool if you're starting to run your regression testing on your non-integrated lower environments. Also, leading on to what you said about security, Ivan, Salesforce is responsible for, we'll say, the security of the platform. And you can look at trust.salesforce.com and then click on security, and you can read all the papers there. But if you have code, which is Apex classes, LWC, so if you develop code in your business processes, it's the customer's responsibility to have what's called web application penetration testing to make sure that you haven't introduced any vulnerabilities in your code.
Perfect. And the next question, leading on from what you were just saying there, Adam, what kind of strategies are there for enterprises to ensure that these releases are adopted well and successful whilst maximizing their ROI from Salesforce?
Yeah. Salesforce seasonal releases, your spring, winter, and summer, they're jam-packed with hundreds of features, updates, or new features and features updates. So it's a good idea to have your Salesforce admin, your architect, your solution engineer, whoever is really in your platform team to read through the release notes to see what the exciting features are with the products that you have in your org, in your Salesforce org, in your organization, and talk to your business about fitting those into your next business change. I mean, you can have a release party or release lunch and learn, order some pizza and showcase those features, not only to IT, but the business as well, maybe the business leaders, product owners, you might call them, to see if they want to have a look at any of those and adopt those into their own business processes. For their business units. Ivan.
Yeah, so Adam's talked a lot about success there, how to make your releases successful. I'll talk a little bit about ROI. This applies to test automation tools, but also your DevOps tools as well. When you think about your CapEx, your upfront cost of getting either your DevOps up and running or authoring your tests. Test automation engineers and SDETs are a fairly scarce resource in the market, so you've got to help them to do their job as efficiently and effectively as possible. So for the sort of CapEx upfront, and this applies to all of your tools, trying to choose a system that's going to make authoring tests as rapid as possible, high quality tests, of course, but make that process as quick as possible. The more tests you can write, the more coverage you get, the more ROI you're going to get out of your test automation tools. And then with the 3 releases a year, you've got to make it as easy as possible to maintain those tests. You don't want to be rewriting all your tests. You want to be writing new tests for new capabilities, new functionality, and increasing your coverage. So a tool that can help authoring the test, but also a tool that can help maintain those tests as well. And then think about multi-system testing. To avoid islands of quality across different systems, you really need to be testing your customer journeys and your business processes across all of those systems. And if you can consolidate and standardize on a tool to do all of that, then you can get a critical mass of capability, and your SDETs and test automation engineers can move from system to system as and when needed. And of course, we can't talk about efficiency and effectiveness without talking about AI. With the growth of generative AI over the last 18 months and practical applications of that, try and look for tools that has got co-pilots and assistants that will help you with every step of the journey. Something that will help you plan your tests, design your tests, author your tests, execute them, analyze them, and heal them as well. That way you can do in minutes what used to take in hours as well. So ensure that you think about the whole journey and beyond just your initial test authoring, but to the complexity that's to come.
Yeah, Nick, if I may, it's probably not about release adoption, but more about, we'll say, release success. Maybe it's the Salesforce seasonal release, or it's your organization's release. But Salesforce ROI, return on investment, is really important. And I think just reiterating the ROI, the return on investment of automated regression testing. So if you don't know what regression testing is, it's testing existing features are working as designed. Okay, so you put some change out in production, and it's testing that business process is working as designed. And when you've got that regression test suite, you're doing that again and again and again. You're testing those same things. So when we talk about regression testing, an automated regression testing, it just means that you can do those same tests, and in larger orgs, quite often much, much faster, without having to have the resources to multiply and do all those tests together. So that's, just understanding the fundamental return on investment of not only regression testing, but automating that regression testing, I think, is really important to share as well.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Adam. And what I mean, leading on from that, in terms of like technology stack, when trying to handle these releases, I mean, we've spoken to some of it around testing, etc. But can you kind of sum up the key things to be thinking about when looking at tools and technology to be managing that process?
Yeah, I think tools are really, really important, but not one tool is right for all organizations. So if you think about the saying of people, process, technology, the technology, the tools support the process, which supports the people. So you kind of start from the end and work your way back. So it's really depending on your business strategy, but also the benefits of those tools. So having a tool like Provar means that you're gonna be able to have clicks, not necessarily code. So that lowers skills. You need lower skills. You don't need necessarily software engineers or all your testers to be software engineers. But if you don't have software engineers and developers, then a click tool is going to probably be essential, because you might not be able to code, tools like Selenium. But getting away from your automated testing tool per se, other DevOps tools, and I know we've got a question in here, and we'll get to that at Q&A, about DevOps, what role DevOps plays, but other tools will be part of the success of that, like API simulations tool as well. Choosing testing tools that probably cover the platforms that you need to run your automated testing. There are some great Salesforce aware click automated testing tools as well. So if you have a look at App Exchange, that are making our customers successful. So when I say Salesforce aware tool, what do I mean by that? Salesforce aware tools will understand, like Ivan's had mentioned before, he was talking about metadata. They'll understand the shadow DOM, And that means that your test won't break when it goes from sandbox to sandbox and production. And also when Salesforce upgrades 3 times a year, they're not going to break because the views change and the number, what do they call it, elements, and the elements are now changed as well. So for larger organizations, selecting solutions that break through those complexity barriers, I think is really important to operate at speed and scale.
Great. What about from your side, Ivan?
Yeah, when I think about this, I think about a lot of companies that I've been involved with that have helped with digital transformation journeys, and what does enterprise scale and enterprise grade mean? And it's important to choose tools that can break through the complexity barrier. There are tools that are easy to get going with, and there are tools that can go past the complexity barrier, and there are tools that can do both. So we think about what the complexity barrier might be. In the Salesforce ecosystem, is enterprise customers, as I said before, they may have multiple orgs, they have multiple products, they'll be integrating with third-party systems. They'll have multiple environments that they need to run their tests on. They'll have many personas. Some of our customers have got hundreds of personas, and each of those personas requires their own set of tests. So having a tool where you can write the test once and run many under different scenarios is quite important for breaking through that complexity barrier. The other dimension of complexity is also multi-system testing. We're known a lot for testing Salesforce, but we can test other systems, and we can test user journeys and business processes across those systems as well. And the other aspects of what it means to be enterprise grade is it needs to be an open, transparent system. It's got to be able to integrate with lots of other DevOps tools and development tools in the ecosystem, everything from Jira to DevOps to observability systems, for example. And the other aspect of transparency is supporting analytics and reporting so that you can report to stakeholders and to the operational leaders in your business how you are doing on your maturity journey for quality. So there are multiple dimensions to enterprise, and I would just say step back when selecting these tools and making sure that they can be on the journey with you to your maturity.
Brilliant. That's great. Thanks a lot. Yeah, Adam, as you mentioned, we do have a question in the Q&A section. How does DevOps play a role in Salesforce release readiness? Could you talk to that one, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I might break this down into kind of 2 sections. One is capability, and the other is, we'll say, process in that, we'll say, preview period release. So, the capability, as I mentioned earlier in the session, DevOps is that platform governance team that will ensure that sandboxes are we'll call it infrastructure provisioning, that sandboxes are created, ready for a developer or tester or automated testing tool to perform a function, whether it be creating a new feature, updating a feature that that exists already in production, or a tester manually testing that feature, or an automated test tool running a test of that feature. So that capability, the higher maturity you have in getting that infrastructure, that sandbox ready, I think is going to improve quality and enable things like speed and scale. So getting things like sandbox, test users in sandboxes is really important, because that's pretty much the start of the quality unit of your testing, your development and testing. But also having the ability to have, we'll say, some synthetic or manufactured data in there. That could be a DevOps tool or deployment tool. It could be a tool like Provar doing pre-data load jobs. As Ivan mentioned, having that test tool integrate with, say, deployment tool, so that after a deployment, you run automated testing as a stage on your pipeline. The DevOps platform team, the capability is very important. Now, as far as process in the preview period, I've seen teams have, we'll talk about tasks. What are we going to do in the preview period? We're going to create a sandbox a few days before preview starts, which will then have that sandbox with the preview version. And if you need a sandbox within the preview period, you can clone that sandbox to get a preview period sandbox. I'm not going to go into the timings too much, but we don't have too much time today. But yeah, there's some nuances about when you create sandboxes and what version they get. Other activities in that preview period is working with the test team to make sure there's a suitable environment to perform regression testing of your Salesforce seasonal release, and working with delivery to get any fixes out to production in case there's a bug. So yeah, there's a few capability and process activities that DevOps plays a vital part in enterprise.
Perfect. I was just thinking, Ivan, could you maybe just talk quickly, as we've got 1 minute left, as to how Provar, how we specifically support these 3 releases a year with our product development, in terms of making sure that we're ahead of these changes for our customers?
Yeah, so we, as a Salesforce partner, we get access to a preview sandbox, if you like. So we get the latest changes that are coming down the pipe from Salesforce, and this is massive benefit to both our customers, Provar, of course, and to Salesforce, because we can get to run all of our regression packs on the latest version of Salesforce, and we can see what's changed. And then we can update these metadata locators that we talked about, and these are the things that help us understand the layout of a Salesforce page, and helps us to navigate the pages so that you don't have to build into every single test how to navigate to the thing you want to test. We can get there straight away. It helps us with API testing, etc. So a customer recently told us that when the summer 25 release came and their preview sandbox was updated, they ran all of their Provar tests, and something like 60 or 70% of them failed. They then updated to the latest version of Provar that was consistent and compatible with that version of Salesforce, and all but one test, which was an edge case, ran. So that was a massive benefit to the customer. It's a benefit to us because it means that we can fix once and help many of our customers. It helps Salesforce as well because we feed back anything that we find in our testing cycle as well.
Perfect. That's great. Okay, well, we're up to our 30 minutes. That's been really great. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Adam.
Can I just interrupt you just for a second, Nick?
Yes.
We did get round to one question from Adam Cadman. If you're still on the line, Adam, yes, you are. DM me and I'll answer your question. The short answer is yes, and there's some detail.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks, Ivan. Thanks, Adam, and thank you all for joining us. And we hope to see you all again soon.